All right. I'm now handing the floor over to Mallory, who's going to introduce Paul.
Okay. Well, Paul and I and Mark and Isabel here all went to high school in New York City in Jamaica. And Paul, for me, was the most amazing painter I had seen in anybody that I know, aside from all the famous people that I don't know. And I think he's lived his life just doing something creative. And his photography, I think, came after the painting. Is that right, Paul?
I'm sorry?
And the photography followed the painting?
No, paralleled.
Okay. And he attended the School of Visual Arts in New York, lived in Soho in New York City until 75, and then he moved to La Jolla. He worked with abstract expressionist Adolf Gottlieb and pop artist Roy Lichtenstein, and worked with Jane Maisel. Did I say that right? Maisel, who remains a lifelong friend and mentor, and Arthur Meyerson, both Nikon legends. For the past 40 years or so, he has produced major photo shoots for national and international clients, including United Airlines, Coca-Cola, London Telegraph, Sports Illustrated bathing suit issue, lucky, and Norfolk Southern. He didn't put that in. I put that. Norfolk Southern Railroad, and he is now retired. Multiple photo exhibitions. He's had multiple photo exhibitions in La Jolla and San Diego, and he's just a really great guy. I think we met because Mark and Paul and I all had motorcycles at the time. And I think that was our first common bond. And then Isabel and Mark and I ended up being in the ski club together. And now we're all interested in art, photography, hanging out with each other. And I'm so glad that Paul is here and he's willing to do this, because I think I have one of his photos. It's amazing. And I'm glad that he gets to share it with you.
All right, thank you, Mallory. Should I just begin?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, Mallory probably told you just about everything you need to know about me up to now, more or less, but I'll just fill in a little bit. I did make some notes, but this whole thing, you'll bear with me, is unscripted. So when I say I paralleled painting with photography, but I hated the chemicals in the darkroom. I basically lived my whole life sort of organically and whatever, and the chemicals really I didn't like. And also color was beyond my reach, and I've always been interested in color. So I kind of backed off on photography, and I did a lot of other things. When I lived in Soho, I designed and built people's lofts, because all these artists of fame were moving in to commercial lofts, and they had no kitchens or real bathrooms. And all the young artists like myself built things for everybody and made a living and stuff. And then I worked as an assistant for a bunch of years, did various artists and great photographers, living in New York. And as Mallory said, I moved out here. So that's kind of where I am. I am retired now, and some things are on the back burner, but other things I'm having a great time with. So that's really nice. But I think I'll get into my presentation rather than it's going to be anecdotal, and also things that I've learned all these years that are just kind of, if you've been shooting your whole life, like some of you have said, it's good to have a gentle reminder of certain things. And also the big challenge for me coming to talk to a group, because before I did this, I went on Stephanie, the site for Fairfax, and I looked as much of your works as possible. And I realized that you guys run the entire gamut from, people carrying tripods and camping out in Yellowstone for 2 weeks for the shot, to people shooting whales and some commercial mixed in and stuff. So it's kind of a challenge because where I'm coming from, I think it's hard to actually pin me down with a genre because I go out and I take things around me. And so with that, I think that would be a good time if I could switch this over and actually look like I know what I'm doing. But okay, talking about all this technology, part of my show here and talk to you guys is that it's not about technology. Maybe it should be, but I'm usually very good at all this stuff. But it's not about f-stops. It's not about Photoshop. It's not about computers. It's about seeing. And I think it's really easy, relatively easily for most, especially if you've been doing it for years, and it's getting easier and easier for photographers to learn how to put it on automatic or aperture priority, and Photoshops lets you correct mistakes, and you don't have to burn film and spend your hard-earned dollars with processing labs or spending hours in a darkroom. And actually, I think that's all terrific that you have those tools to work with. But I think the hardest thing for anybody in any of the arts is to learn to develop your own vision and to cultivate your own your basic own dialogue and how you see things. And that's kind of why I'm talking to you guys with that impetus. So it covers all the mediums that you all shoot in, black and white, color, or what have you, even for film. And there's some things that I learned that are habits that we get into. And one of them, the simplest one is, it starts with a lot of us go out with a preconceived notion of what we want to shoot. If you live in New York, you want to get the Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building, just at sunset. And we go out and sometimes we get what we want, we're stoked, but a lot of times we don't. And a lot of stuff might be happening around you. And when you lock in your vision, and again, this talk is about seeing, when you lock in your vision on something you had in mind before you even went out, you might be missing stuff. And maybe you're not, but a great mentor and friend of mine said, turn around, schmuck. And you turn around. And I was photographing a troupe of hula dancers putting on a benefit for Pearl Harbor survivors and the Holiday Inn next to the San Diego International Airport. And the hula show was over, and I was waiting for them to come back out when they went in the back and changed. And I was waiting around, and all the Pearl Harbor survivors went home. And this guy comes out and steps into the pool. And I heard a splash, and I turned around, and this was what was happening. And this was one of my first digital shots with, and it was absolutely thrilling to me, and it's become one of my jewels. But it always drives home that I turn around, So let's see if this thing will advance, and I have a few examples of that. Look at that! It did it. So. Again, this was, I think I was actually having lunch and maybe waiting for who I was with for something or other. And I turned around and this was happening behind me. And this is, anybody interested? You can just give thumbs up if you want me to tell you where or something. To me, that's not even that important. Okay. I was actually in Little Italy in New York City, and there was a festival of San Gennaro that I used to go to all the time when I lived there. And I was shooting the vendors and getting great stuff. And then I just was turning around to leave, and this lady was going into this church. And there's something that I also learned through photographing people and animals, a thing called gesture, and how there's a gesture in things that people do. And if you can capture that, that's going to bring more story to your viewer who's viewing your photography.
Beautiful.
This, I have to admit, was set up. But it's my wife standing at Sunrise, White Sands National Park in southern New Mexico. So I didn't turn around for this. I was at a fair shooting people. That was the best fun for me. And this little fellow was having such a great time. And this shot, and I'll talk about this a lot during the show, this shot was about color. A lot of my stuff just gets excited with color. And I feel that that's enough to hold a photograph, at least for me. And design will, the design elements, the graphic elements of the frame will carry that forward. So it's a good thing to be aware of. And it's also a good time to also mention another thing is that there's a discipline that is very good as a photographer to learn. And I learned as that because in the early days, it was dark rooms, it was film, and I was poor. And you had to be very disciplined what you shoot. And the zoom lenses sucked in those days. So you went out with one lens, or if you were a big shot with two lenses, I don't know. It's real nice to sometimes go out with a discipline of, let me just take one lens or two the most, one camera body, and not get hung up and forget about your equipment and just concentrate on scene. Again, some of you who go shoot Yosemite Falls or Ansel Adams type thing, and you're set up for days or a day or so. I'm not talking to you really, because you're seeing it the entire day. I mean, you guys are looking at it. But for a lot of us who go out to shoot, which is what I like to do, it's time to shoot. So more of the fair. It's again gesture. It's the end of the night.
Wow.
Gesture. I don't shoot a lot of portraits. I feel that portrait taking is probably, for me, the most difficult of anything, because you have to work you have to get your model or models to give to you, and do that and concentrate on everything else. So I like to shoot random and not formal portraiture, but I do enjoy it. And
That's great.
this was the bartender who also happens to be my son at a show in New York, in La Jolla. It's fun to watch people doing things too. And when the light is great, some magical stuff happens. I happen to live a couple of blocks from one of the great surf spots. And I often will go down and shoot. I used to surf all the time, but now I just shoot not the waves, but the pictures. And again, it's not the kind of surf shots that go in surf magazines with a guy doing an aerial 30 feet in the air. It's about the feeling of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of you like to shoot nature, one of the gifts of nature and God's for all of me here in San Diego is I live next to the largest park in the state of California, Anza Borrego Desert. It's huge, and it's right next to the Salton Sea. And it's just, you could go there forever, and I've been going there forever, and you just get different things there all the time. A friend who's joined us, I hope he's still with us, Chris Now knows that very well. It's an hour and a half or so drive out there. And about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, an artist named Ricardo Briseda. I'll list some of these things and put it on your website. Did these tin sculptures out of scrap metal. and they're incredible, and they're open to the public, and there's over 100 scattered across thousands of acres of park. And they're huge, by the way. It's hard to get the scale on these things, but
Mm.
a lot of my idea about nature photography, and I know a lot of you said you did nature photography, is oh, look at that, I'm driving somewhere, it's beautiful, and I pull over and I roll down the window and shoot out the window, and then I drive on. And this was actually in one of those ski lifts in the Grand Tetons.
Oh,
Okay, I told you there's no Photoshop, but this is not Photoshop. I didn't lie to you. This is a wave pool in near the boardwalk, near where I live at night. And it's a slow exposure, and the lighting and all the Photoshop effects are all done with different color spotlights, the way they light the pool. So it's pretty much out of the camera like this. I just didn't want to think I use Photoshop. There's nothing wrong with using Photoshop, but
is that a surfer? Was that a surfer?
yes. I don't know why it went there. It wasn't supposed to go there, was it? Let's see. Yes, that's a surfer.
Wow, I love that.
I'm enamored by windows, and I'm also enamored by tall vertical things. And if you probably don't know it because I'm sitting here, but I'm 6'7". So I've always been very tall and like a palm tree. And maybe it has something to do with my taste, but this shot's about verticality and color and windows.
Wow.
And reflections and stuff on things are always fascinating. I'm very enamored by graphics, strong graphics.
Hmm.
This is an ode to my mentor. Do any of you know or heard of Jay Maisel?
Yes.
Jay Maisel was one of the early color photographers who followed Ernst Haas with the early color photography. And he made one of his signature shots were telephone lines catching the light. So this is my ode to Jay, who's 92. And he can't shoot because he can't get around, but he's editing. He's 92, he's editing 75 years of Kodachrome slides and digital slides. Crazy.
Hmm.
I love shooting windows, and I really love shooting windows with that have old glass. I'm sure if you're all visual, you must know old glass wasn't perfectly clear like it is today. It's kind of wavy-ish and imperfect and thick and thin, and it distorts everything. And this is old glass. This is a portrait of actually very talented graphic designer next to a window, which is actually looking, it's underneath a swimming pool. It's an underground little room that you can go look underneath the water from a 50s swimming pool at a motel.
Cool. Oh.
I think sometimes graphic pictures can also have gesture. And for me, this is always giving me a gesture with suggestions of morphic things, but none of you are asking questions, so I'm just filling in for things for you.
Really great.
Thank you.
Wow.
No question, this is what I aspire to, photos like this. Oh my God,
Wow.
fabulous, thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, hopefully we'll get you there. I don't want to wait to the very end. I want to have you ask me any questions, but there are some things that I want to bring up, and maybe I can just pause this for a second. Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I really think for seeing that's really, really important and is very easy to overlook, and it actually requires some effort on our part, is to go to museums, go see other art. It's really, it's like wine tasting or something. It increases your palate for art and visuals. And there's so many great people doing so much great work. And books. I can't say enough of books. I have to admit I'm a junkie for photo books, because for me, that's like an ultimate canvas for a collector, is to have photo books. And this is a book by a little small tome by a guy named Dan Winters. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not. Incredible photographer, and it's called Road to Seeing. If you can beg, borrow, or borrow from the library this book, if you want to learn about seeing, Dan Winters, Road to Seeing. It's anecdotal, it's not fussy, it's like a primer to get those synapses in the old noggin working.
How many pages does that have? It looks
I gotta
500.
tell you, I've never met Sam, but I'm a good friend with a good friend of his, and I told him the book didn't hold up. It's too heavy for the binding.
Ah, shame.
It's a great book. And
Huge.
Is this your picture or is it his?
No, that's mine.
What
I'm not
is
gonna
it?
show you. These people are enjoying my
No,
work.
I don't know. Well, it
Oh, I'm
sounded like
joking.
you. Well, it sounded like you were talking about his picture. So, but what is this through that kind of glass? Like, what's going on here? I
Yes,
love it.
that's a building that was done actually in 1900. You know what? To answer your question about pages, he didn't paginate the book.
Oh,
I would say it's a good 400.
yeah, it's a huge collection. Is it every other page?
He
Is it
starts.
full?
He starts every. It's in chapters, and I was scanning this before, and I wanted to write down things quotes that he said, that he starts. Okay, this is something I was trying to tell you before. So this is how he'll start it or interlace these things he said. The guy is brilliant.
Mention his name once again.
Dan Winters.
Dan
like
Winters.
this.
Thanks.
Okay, he writes this. I feel it's crucial to not become too attached to any one idea, as any number of circumstances and variables can present an image I would have never pre-visualized. So that's what I was trying to say. He says it much better than I can say it too. It's a challenge to create compelling imagery with seemingly little to work with. So, and here, I just a couple more. I got into this. I started pulling my whole bookcase down. I realized I better move along. I don't know if any of you heard of Wim Wenders.
Yeah, of course.
Oscar-winning cinema filmmaker, director, won an Oscar for, I think it was Paris, Texas. A very stark movie from the 60s. I love his work. My son apprenticed him on a shoot in Wyoming. But one of the things I love that he said in his book, he talks about seeing, amongst other things. He goes on road trips once he decides on a movie. He doesn't send out a production person until he knows where he wants them to go. And he goes out to see what's out there in relation to what he does. And he says an interesting thing, that if any of you ever gone on a road trip with your wife or some friends or somebody or your kid, a lot of times, I know I'm very guilty of this, you'll be riding along and it's a fantastic image, but you're going 70 miles an hour on the freeway. And usually I try to sit shotgun so I don't have to drive, I can look around. But after a couple hours of a trip, if I see a lot of good stuff, the last thing they want to hear me say is, hey, can you pull over? There's a great shot and back up 200 feet, or let me get out. And so you don't do it. You let it go by, and I regret every time. So if you really want to go out and seriously take some pictures, it's great to be on your own. And
Amen.
Bresson, I think Cartier-Bresson said all the pictures that he could ever take in his lifetime are within a 1 or 2 mile radius of where he lived in Paris. So you don't have to even get in a car, you can walk, but it's a big deal when somebody's waiting you to get the shot, blah, blah, blah. Okay, on with the show. Oh, wait a minute. This is one book too. After you did, you looked at, if really, The Road to Seeing is a great book. And once you kind of feel you've seen a little bit, here's a wonderful place to go. Sam Abell, Seeing Gardens. Sam is a great photographer. He gives workshops around the world, and he talks about seeing. And this one is Seeing Gardens. He also has a great book, Life of a Photographer. And I feel that for you to take good pictures, you should feel like a photographer. You shouldn't feel like that's your hobby. You shouldn't feel like that's secondary to your grandkid who you're watching. Go out and be the friggin' photographer. Take control. It's your world and you're shooting. So anyway, okay.
So Paul, here I see Road to Seeing on Amazon. It's $319.
Oh, no way.
And the second thing I want to say is, Dennis, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about glass, since you've mentioned it a few times. The glass is considered to be one of the last liquids in terms of viscosity. And with time, it does sag. So the tops of old windows are much thinner than the bottoms. In some cases, the top of the glass will actually pull away from the frame. You'll have an opening there, a small opening.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where for old glass, that's where the property is coming from, that it's actually still moving, just
Did it start out all crisp and clear, or?
It often does start out crisp and clear, but depending on the vintage, it's going to sag with gravity.
This is about 1905 or so, I think.
Yeah.
And it's facing west on the ocean.
Yeah. I know because I was in construction for many years, I've seen a lot of old windows that, when you replace wood windows, and you replace them for one reason or another, the glass has already pulled away from the top of the frame.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and it gets wavy down below.
All right, well, that's very interesting. I looked at the clock and I think I'm burning up too much time. I want to show you more pictures, so I'm going to go ahead.
I just mentioned it because you did a couple times. So
now this is great glass. It's not there. Again, windows in color, more old glass. Hello. Okay. Birds come into my vision very often. I'm sorry, I got the arrow in there. And there's always one in the group, right? The guy in the upper left side that leaves the formation. I was involved in producing the covers, the boxes for Girl Scout of America cookie sales that Burry or whatever the company was putting on the packages. and we had to go shoot Girl Scout troops. And there was always one that was making a face or turning around. This is the only iPhone shot in my show. It's fun to shoot people, A, when they don't know you're shooting them, but when they're doing something interesting too. This is in a national park, walking under a waterfall. It's wonderful when different light hits colors, how the colors change, and the shadows just brought that kind of patinaed green door into the blues and turquoises at sunset.
That is amazing, really.
I love that one too. That's great. Wow.
So over the years, I've come across fires, and I would try to shoot the fire. But now it's much more interesting to just wander away from the fire and wander around. And you find stuff like this, like this. I've shown this picture a few times to people and they go, wow, you had to get all those people to do that. It was a turnaround shot. I was shooting low tides, the local beaches, and they were all doing that. I couldn't have set it up better. And this place is a war memorial for veterans. Magical things happen there.
Mm.
For the sake of color.
Mm. Mm.
Texture, I love texture. So once in a while I do get out of the car, and this was a sunset. Everybody asked me when I showed them this picture for the first time, what was going on? And the sun was setting, and you guys can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
When I can, and I think it's a great tool to think about scale. Scale is such an incredibly powerful tool. For me, this would be an instructional picture to show when you're talking about scale.
Mm. Oh, cool.
It helps that I live near a glider port. I mean, a hang glider port. And this guy knows how to do it without it. In my own backyard, it's fun sometimes to just go out and putter in your garden and shoot. I love macro photography, but I was terrible at it. You really need it. You can't handhold it. You need it. You need to know what you're doing. Thermonuclear, and not thermo energy, not thermonuclear. Sorry. creating electricity for San Diego out in the desert.
Oh, beautiful.
My wife was danced for many years, even before we had kids, in a professional hula troupe. And I would love to go because it was like sending a kid to a candy store. I mean, it was just so much beautiful stuff happening. But again, it's fun. You can shoot behind the scenes. They wouldn't let me in the dressing rooms though. This is, I'll take a second to describe this. It's a very special to me shot. My wife is the hula dancer in the front. And these are all breast cancer survivors who you can see by their various stages of hair or lack of hair. And a plastic surgeon opens up his clinic for a once a month thing for different cancer survivors or patients that are going through cancer. And my wife is wearing a wig because she had just gone through all of her treatments for, it was a long time ago. She's been cancer-free for 15 years. But to me, this picture will never stop giving me the willies. I mean, it's just big. And the braveness of all the women there, my heart goes out to them.
Oh,
Dare I say, a young thespian group just came across them as I was walking around town. Okay. So one of the things I did want to talk about, and hurry me on, Stephanie, if I'm taking too much time. It's the comfort zone, and especially as I get older, I'm very guilty of it. But I stayed at a wonderful lodge in Crater Lake, and the beds were comfortable, and the breakfast was great, and I was on vacation. I wasn't shooting a job or anything, and I forced myself out of the bed to get downstairs ready for sunrise. At like, it was in the summer too, so it was really friggin' early. And for me, if you know me, and so push yourself if you want to get the shot. One of my friends here, we have an incredible wildflower going on this year, and I'm sure you guys too, with all the rain we've had. The wildflowers are incredible; they're everywhere. And she was out with her dog, and she's a photographer too, and she couldn't get. She looked at her shots later, and they were just like, so what, you know? And I know exactly what she's talking about. And I said to her, it took a lot of the forces of nature and time for that shot to develop. And you're just going to walk over there at your convenience and shoot a picture and expect it to have that majesty. Plus, when you're there, your eye can go across the vista and see. But when you're presented with a photograph, it's a static image. You're going to focus right in on that. And if you don't know it's part of acreage and miles going into the distance and stuff, so it can be a great shot, but get there when it's foggy, when you think the light's going to be awful. Get there for sunrise or sunset. You work and you get the shot if it's important to you. If it's casual and you just have to live with what you get. So to me, you can never work too hard, you know, for a shot. And this is actually the same shot at sunset.
wow.
That was easy. Much easier. And once in a while you get lucky. Listen, I didn't see some of the stuff in this shot until I brought it back to the big computer screen. I have nothing against cropping. Why put that limitation on it? A lot of people say get it right for the first thing, but
Cartier Bresson.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is very good, Mallory. This is an ode to yet another photographer who I've never had the pleasure to meet, and I guess I never will, but Bresson. And this is in Portland. And a couple of you said you go out with the camera all the time, and I was really happy to hear that. And I, for years and years, did. I don't anymore. But this is, you get lucky. I brought it to the museum where you're not even, and when this was shot, you weren't even supposed to take cameras.
That's right.
Walking
Cool.
around the Pacific, well, actually, this was in Sitka, Alaska. And this lady who I know we were walking by. And I said, honey, it's crazy. Go stand in front of that mural over there. I mean, you know, it was an opportunity. She was the dancer, the hula dancer that I was telling you about, dressed a little differently.
Wow. It's very zen.
Make a wish. And some of you, if you really get stymied and you're at the same place for a long time and you got a little time, you don't have a client with you or anybody else, you're on your own, do as the sign says. Light a joint, then go walk around with your camera. Good luck.
Where are you?
New
Where's
Orleans.
that?
New
Where?
Orleans.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, which you could get away with. This was before it was legal. Now I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Love texture, and nature's texture to me speaks to me. I could shoot this stuff all day long, but everybody would be asleep.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of nowhere, I schlepped the 400 millimeter all the way from San Diego to Maui and went on an hour and a half drive to a winery. And I pulled over and I said, damn, that's why I brought the 400 millimeter. And nobody was on that road. And I said, Paul, be patient, sit here and wait for a little while. And I was shooting other stuff. And the first car I heard in like 20 minutes. I mean, right? I mean, who could order that car?
Yeah, matches.
I better go through quick because I think I'm getting near the end. Love trees, could shoot trees all day long. I'm putting together a show of trees. I hope I finish and get it done before too long.
Where is this one? Oh, go back,
that's-
Paul. Where was that last shot?
This?
Mhm.
This was at the Japanese Garden in Portland.
Wow.
If you haven't been there, it's the most beautiful Japanese garden I've ever seen.
Wow. I love that.
Carmel Valley,
Oh, wow.
up near you guys. This was after the Cedar fires in the early 2000s. That was bigger than the size of Chicago, I think. It was huge. It was the worst fire that I've ever been near. And this was about 80 miles inland in Julian. And there was a meeting after the fire was out by a bunch of elected officials, the fire department, emergency people, and I got invited to come out. And I was going to turn it down because the morning when in San Diego was fogged in and raining and drizzling. And I said, I'm not going to get anything. And I kicked myself out of the door to go. And it was incredible. The misting that was going on was like glossing the colors out there where everything was burned. I'm going to keep scooting here.
Oh, wow.
I think we're getting to the end.
Hmm,
The harvest moon.
hmm.
Oh, that must be the end.
Oh,
Okay, anybody want to ask any questions or so? If there's any time, Stephanie?
There's definitely time.
Oh,
I'll
cool.
say you could keep going all night as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, that
All
was,
right, I have another 2,000 images.
Oh, just fabulous and inspiring. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much, Paul. Just
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And I live in Sitka in the summertime, so I recognize those murals.
Oh, okay, it's a great place. I love the Totem Pole Museum too.
Yes.
Walking through there in the weather,
Right.
it's just incredible. I mean, the whole region is drop dead gorgeous. I mean,
Mhm.
the whole Pacific Northwest, and I mean, it starts in Marin. I mean, or and beyond.
Yeah.
And I'm going to New York City next week. I can't wait now.
Oh, nice. Good time of year to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think your painting experience really shows with your messages, and your statements about seeing are really on point. I think every photographer sees better than non-photographers, but you've raised it to a new level here.
Well, I thank you very much. You
Can
know,
we,
I was going to
can-
bring up an example of that when my older son, who's now 40, when he was in junior high, yeah, I think he was like 11 or so, he and his friend got into model trains, and that's all I needed, because I had as a second career, or this photography was whatever you offer. I design and build furniture. And I love building, and I love scale, and I love miniature things. And we got into model railroading. And where this pertains to seeing is that I built the little buildings, and I started seeing as I was driving around town what a beautiful layout that would be. So I started seeing model railroad layouts, and it's the same thing. It's just just a sort of a suggestion of a way to train your eye is something like, if you love food, you might go into a wonderful market somewhere, or like a fish market in Japan, and start shooting foods, or a sushi bar and that just develops a way of seeing.
Could I ask if your artwork contributes to your photography, or you use the two in conjunction, get your ideas from photography and then go paint them, or?
No, I never did that actually. But I think I've always treated art as what interests me. I didn't ever like say I'm a painter, for instance, or I'm a sculptor, or I'm
Mhm.
a woodworker, or a motorcycle guy, or a hippie. Oh, actually, the hippie part might have covered a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just the living the life of somebody who I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
My wife is a very Zen. She teaches Qigong. She meditates huge portions of her time, and teaches it as well. And I explained to her that visual is my Zen.
Yeah.
It gives me greater pleasure than
Oh.
and it's and actually, when I take a photograph, this is a question that's come up in some other workshops that I've been involved in. They say, "What's your greatest pleasure?" I get so excited when I see something and I take a photograph, and it makes me think of I can't remember who I'm quoting here, but he says, when you see something, don't take a picture of it. Let the picture take you.
Mm-hmm.
So you love the visual of it. And for me, that coincided with getting back and being able to do a print and having a print in my hands. And like a book is an extension of that too.
Yeah.
So, but I
Can
don't,
can we see you, Paul?
can we see me?
Yeah, people. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's been on the same picture. I'd like to see.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What do you want to, oh, get rid of the slideshow? Okay, stop the share. Okay, here we go. How's
There
that?
you go. Great, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Any other questions anybody has or whatever? Or
Which artists, photographers and artists inspired you the most,
um,
both for art and for photography?
well, that's a really good question. I went to School of Visual Arts, and Bern Hogarth was the anatomy teacher, and Bern Hogarth was famous. He did all the what's
What?
that? Bern Hogarth, he did all the comic book illustrations for all the Tarzan comic books. He taught anatomy to us, and he was incredible how good he was. And we were at the School of Visual Arts was in the old NYU dental school, and there was an amphitheater for learning surgeries and lectures. And he would sketch on these big screens muscles and facial and things, and it just blew me away. But as a photographer, probably nobody as much as Jay Maisel. I worked for him as an assistant for a bunch of years, and then I helped produce his big time photo shoots, and we would just live the photographic life together. It was in the heyday of commercial arts. Our budgets were huge. We'd get a seat. This is pre-digital, and you guys remember that I used to shoot film. What a pain in the ass to go to like some far out place with 100 or 200 rolls Kodachrome that has to be temperature protected, not X-rayed, and heavy camera gear and lights even sometimes. And we'd book a first class seat for us and for the camera gear. Those were the days. But so those two for sure. Painters and artists, I can't, there's just too many. Arthur Meyerson is an incredible photographer, commercial and personal. His books, Arthur Meyerson, they were in the other room and I didn't pull them out here, but he's very much the color of light. That's one of his books, Arthur Meyerson, internationally recognized. Any other questions?
I appreciate the suggestions on the on Jay Maisel. How do you spell his last name? Maisel?
Maisel.
Aisel. I'll have to look him up.
And he has a very good website. And if you go to, he has a thing called collections. Now, mind you, he's 92.
Yeah.
And he can't get around so much anymore and hold a big camera, which is what he's used to shooting with. He's been digital, but not, he can't go. So he's going through his archives, hundreds of thousands of pictures, and putting together collections of seconds and thirds.
Oh man.
Fascinating. On his website, go to look at his collections.
Definitely will. Yeah, thanks.
And he puts a new one and sign up for his mailing list, because then I think it's every other Saturday he sends.
Oh
one.
man.
Yeah.
He's keeping busy for 92. My God.
Oh, sharp as a tack, full of his
Wow.
and stuff. And
Yeah.
he was a total pain in the ass to work for, but I was a total pain in the ass assistant.
It's
We
funny.
used to do all the bad things that assistants are not supposed to do. And but he put up with me, and we're dear, dear friends. Love him and his family dearly, and are very close.
Fantastic.
Well, if you're not going to ask anything, let me run through this real quick.
Paul,
Yes.
Is this his photograph of the World Trade Center with the Empire State Building that's behind me here?
I'm not familiar with that pictures. The world, that's the world. I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought that was his.
Go to his website. He had a 6-story building, and the entire south side of the building faced the World Trade Center. 2 miles, it was on Spring Street in Soho, and he photographed the World Trade Center going down until he couldn't photograph because he was crying so hard.
Oh,
And yes, it's epic. He did a book on just the World Trade Center, and if you go search him out, but there'll be a lot of stuff on it. He would go down, and he did a slideshow that's on his website, I believe, bearing witness, and he would go down during the cleanup of it after it was all people could get in again to see, but around the perimeter, and he would just shoot people looking at the destruction at that site, the devastation, the emotion, the gesture. And I've seen it so many times in his talks and presentations, and it chokes me up every time. The strength of photography. The other night,
I see a David Maisel and a Jay Maisel.
Jay,
Jay.
I think it was 60 Minutes or CS Sunday Morning. They gave a segment on Knockway, war photography. And you see it, David Knockway. If you can get a rerun, the guy's incredible. He's been basically an AP, a Magnum photographer his whole life. He's my age or so. And he didn't get married and have kids. He gave himself over to putting his life on the line to take pictures of the war so we could all remember and understand the horror of it. And he's been into Ukraine twice already. I can't believe he's still doing it. It makes me ashamed of myself. So lazy now. But anyway. So a couple of things that if I still have time, shut me up if you need. One thing I wanted to say was editing, and Stephanie offered a possibility of doing critiques. I think that's really good to learn from other people, especially good photographers who you respect, but also other people that are in your club. Be your own worst critic. Edit it, and then edit. And yep, I think I got it. I don't know. Yeah. Yep. That's it.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank
Great
you all.
reflection.
Do you want to, I'm going to share my screen for a moment.
Sure.
And let's see. So, sorry, I've got a crying dog here too. This is our challenge, and I'll let you
Oh,
talk about it. Tell us our challenge.
so when Stephanie and I did we did a tech walkthrough the other night of yesterday afternoon, and everything went perfect. It was fine. Unlike tonight, I don't know what went wrong, but she suggested and asked me if I could possibly suggest a challenge. And I've seen your challenge. I thought the bathroom one was hysterical. I expected to see more shocking shots. I was disappointed, but you did. I did some really good stuff, and then the water stuff. You all did some really, really nice stuff, and they're both terrific topics. I did a whole show on water, a gallery show. I thought about it on the spot, and I said, "How about a shot that exists for the joy of the color?" And so Stephanie thought that sounds really good to me. And I said, well, some of your people I saw shoot black and white a lot, and I don't, is it fair to them? And Stephanie had a great comeback to that. She said, it's all right. Let them get out of their box a little bit, strain it a little bit. And that's so good for all of us, especially as we get older. So a photograph that lives for its color and what other hidden meanings you might have in it. I love
Mhm.
texture, but color and texture or whatever.
Yeah.
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 I'll be looking.
I like this one. I like
I do
this a
too.
lot.
So do I. So I'll post this
Cool.
on the Facebook page. I will also post our field trip. And I will post one more thing. I'm looking at my little thumbnails here. Should I post our upcoming schedule?
Sure.
I don't want people to check their workout too much because it makes it more fun when you get to, what do you all think about that? I think I'm not gonna do it. I think I'll just do month by month.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to be at the June or July just because of my work schedule up in the Alaska, but I will try. We'll see what happens. There's a time change, and so I don't know. We'll see.
And one of these days we'll get you speaking, Raven.
Stephanie,
Maybe.
Somebody said my name.
I did. Stephanie, if you do get to a point where your members want a critique,
Okay.
if I'm around, I don't mind sitting in if I can do it.
Okay,
because
we'll
it was
ask.
invaluable to me over the years to have some scarily people do my critiques. I mean, people that, you know, I'd be nervous showing my work to because they're very, very good. So I'm happy to help.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
You could join us. You could join our club, Paul.
I am joined.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and those of you that got the link from Paul, you're welcome to send me your email and I'll add you to our mailing list. In fact, I'll put my email in the chat if you want to send me your contact. I don't send too many emails. I think I send 3 per month or so, just reminding you of the meeting. So I'm putting my email in the chat. If you want to send me a little thing, you can.
Let me ask a question. Is Chris now still here?
I think he's gone.
He's gone. Okay.
Yeah, he's gone. And I'll just tell you next month, our next speaker, I usually have the flyer, but he didn't send me the his headshot. He's a very busy guy. It's Harvey Castro, and his work.
Okay.
Harvey Castro, and amazing as well.
What date are we talking?
That will be. Forgive me for taking a second here. I think it's June. Let's see, June 15th.
7 p.m.
I just love how every month somebody completely different. It's just different every single month. I love that.
Well, being on the West Coast and it's getting late, I might say goodbye and go eat my dinner.
I know I have mine right here, and I was trying not to chew on the screen.
You notice I didn't pick up my wine glass until I was done.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. Everybody seemed very engaged, and we loved it. And I will send you a copy of your talk, and I'll take out the technical difficulties.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That was wonderful.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
night.
See you guys.
Good night.
Really enjoyed that, Paul. It was great, great presentation.